It's insane. I don't even know what to say. Coming from a customer service background where I was, and dog walking, where I was making 35, maybe 40, I
Yeah.
doubled my income. I started Course Careers about 4.5 weeks ago. And I came from an entirely customer service background. And in fact, right before I started Course Careers, I was walking dogs in the DC area. I live in the DC area. So, yeah, I actually came across Course Careers through Cyrus Harbin. He was doing an interview with Anthony O'Neill. And I love Anthony. I follow his advice when it comes to the financial aspect of things. So I said, well, hey, if he's talking about this tech company, or this tech boot camp called Course Careers, I really should check it out. And so I did that, and here I am.
Yeah, look at that. So before Course Careers, you were literally walking dogs,
Yeah.
and now 4 weeks later, you're working for one of the largest tech companies with a really good salary and technology sales.
Yes, seriously, legit. And I think so many people are just like, wait a minute, you started when? You've been doing this for how long? And honestly, I had always wanted to break into the tech industry,
Hmm.
but I never knew that. I always thought you had to be a coder or a data analyst, and my brain just simply it does not work that way. So once I found out about tech sales, I was like, wow, this could really potentially change a lot of things for me because I have a lot of outside passions and things that I'm really interested in. But I was finding within the customer service field, I had the money to just kind of pay for my bills and just kind of like everyday life. But I wasn't having the money to pay for bills and the dream. And so I said, you know what, something's got to give. I've got to do something differently, and I've got to go down a different path in order to make something happen.
Sure. And do you have a 4-year degree, by the way?
I do not. I do not. I went to college. I I was put on academic probation. I was living in Florida, and I was at the beach too much, Troy, if I'm going to be honest with you. I was at the beach more than I was in class. So there's that. But I did end up later on getting my associate's degree, and just a associate's in arts. So nothing technical, no big degree at all. And that was back in 2014. I can honestly say I haven't really used it, truthfully.
Yeah. Wow. So no bachelor's degree. And have you ever worked in the technology field before?
Never,
Never
never.
worked in the tech.
I've never worked in a tech field before. My brother-in-law, he's been in the tech industry since I was a little girl.
Mhm.
And he would always tell me growing up, hey, I'm 34 now. I just turned 34 in September. But he would always tell me when I was, 10, 12, 13 years old, he's like, hey, you should really think about getting into the tech industry. But then, just kind of like I said a little bit earlier, I always thought that meant being like a software engineer or something like that. And I tried to dabble in that for just a few weeks, and it wasn't something that pulled at me. So yeah, I have no technical background at all. In fact, some days I struggle with working my iPhone. So, I'm not ashamed to say that.
That's incredible. So what I'm curious, so after you watched that interview, you go to Course Careers, did you go through the introduction course?
Yes, I did. That's exactly how I started out. It was actually the day before I started, I believe, that I started the introduction course.
Yeah.
And I went through that, and it just kind of gave me a sense of like, okay, this is going to be me just kind of like talking to people and doing this and doing that. And it was, I always say this, Troy, on LinkedIn, but I'm telling you now, and I'm telling the viewers now, anyone who hasn't signed up for Course Careers, Troy explains everything so easily that if you're a newbie, if you are, even if you've been in tech sales or you've dabbled in any kind of sales before, you can pick up wherever you are. Troy has a way of meeting you where you are, right? And so that's what it was for me. It was like I felt like you met me exactly where I was in the introductory course, and that sold me. I was like, you know what? It's going to be me talking to people. I'm pretty good with that. You know, why not give this a try? And this allows me to break into tech. And
Mhm.
I just knew, you know, I went down the rabbit hole too of just like other videos that Cyrus had, or just, you know, going on YouTube and looking up tech sales. And truthfully, there wasn't a whole lot. There wasn't, I mean, this is just like a few weeks ago. There wasn't a whole lot. I watched some of the same guys, Patrick, Trent, you know, yeah, Black Heights. So I watched some of the same guys like every single day just to get a better, an even better understanding while I was going through the course as well.
Great. And let's learn a little bit more about your course experience. So while you're going through the course, did you know anything about sales or technology sales before enrolling, or was this your first introduction to it?
Yeah, it was kind of my first introduction. I had dabbled in like wholesaling real estate a little bit.
Mhm.
But as far as just kind of this kind of sales, this was my first time. The last time I did any kind of like retail sales was when I was like a teenager, when I first started working, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a first for me. But I was totally open to it because, you know, when you're desperate for change, you're gonna make something happen. And also, I believe that when you're desperate for change, opportunities are going to present themselves to see if you're going to take those opportunities up. And so the opportunity presented itself to, you know, go down the road of, you know, the tech boot camp with course careers. And I took it on.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. And so you're going through the course material. Did you find any of the course material very difficult or challenging?
Honestly, no. And that's
Mhm.
honestly speaking, I did not, because everything was so forward. And then even if I did have any questions, like if I were to have any questions, I saw everyone else, you know, on LinkedIn, and so it's such a community, you know, with
Mhm.
course careers. So you can ask anyone any kind of question, even yourself, you know. I just kind of started reaching out to Troy and just asking him things, not even necessarily pertaining to the course specifically, but he was just always so open. So yeah, I didn't really find anything necessarily super challenging, but there were things that, you know, I would go like after I would you know, view it on the course, I would
Mhm.
go and I would just kind of get more, go deeper basically with it, with a Google search or something like that. And yeah, that was pretty much my experience.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And what do you think was the most valuable part of the course for you? Was it the material or the community? Or how important was the community to you?
The community is probably, honestly, Troy, it's funny because this is literally just, I can't stress to you guys enough, get your LinkedIn's up and get connected with other people that are within course careers, whether they've finished, whether they found jobs already, whatever, just get connected with people, because the community, I've never been on a social media platform where everyone's just rooting for you and you're just rooting for them, you know? And you don't even know these people. You know, it's just like, oh, you're in course careers. Oh, great. Yeah, I'm rooting for you. You're looking for a job. Oh, me too. So the community that's come out of this, I have, and another thing I'll say is when you're connecting with people on LinkedIn, take it from the connections, like pressing the button, to actually getting the phone numbers and really being connected with these people. That's the most important. I now have, just 4 weeks ago, I didn't have half the numbers that I have in my phone that I do now. of just different mentors, just different, people that were in the, my peers that were in the course, along with me. And everyone is just helping in some kind of way. And you truly do not know who people know. And that's the most fascinating part. I've had people, that I've met that took course careers, but they come from like such a high level within their previous companies, or the company that they're in now, or what have you. And so you don't know what types of opportunities that's going to open up for you. Um, and people never believe me when I say this, but I'm an introvert. I prefer to be alone. I prefer to, like, if I didn't have to talk to people, I wouldn't. And that's just the truth. But when you open yourself up to building the community within LinkedIn, you open yourself up to so many possibilities and so many new opportunities. It's ridiculous. It's amazing.
Exactly. And what was your experience like interviewing with companies and landing a position?
Yeah, so the experience was pretty interesting. You go through a few rounds of interviews, right? So it's definitely not like anything that I had ever gone through. Uh,
Hmm.
Typically, I've had jobs where, hey, I like you. I like the way you talk. I like, yeah, let's go. You can start tomorrow. And this wasn't like that. It was a journey. And so you have to be patient with yourself and just kind of pace yourself so you don't get overwhelmed. But the process was, I started with a recruiter over the phone, pretty much for two of the companies, including Zoom Info. I don't mind putting that out there, including Zoom Info. That was on the phone with the recruiter first. Then that went to a meeting with two other managers through a Zoom call. And then once I got through that round, I met with a couple more managers a few days later through a Zoom call as well. And then one of the other companies I had interviewed for was more of a paid internship that turned into a salary position. And let's see, that was a small startup. So about 10 to 12 people that they had, employees. And that was actually here in the Washington, D.C. area. So the other company that I interviewed for was on site, where I would have to go to the office every day. And then Zoom Info, which is the company that I ended up getting the position with, that is right now I'm remote up until January. I think
Hmm.
it's January 17th. I start going into the office one day a week.
Gotcha. Wow. So did you only interview with two companies?
I interviewed with three. I interviewed with
Mhm.
a startup. I interviewed with kind of like a mid kind of level company, and then I interviewed with Zoom Info.
I see. And
Yeah.
why did you choose to go with Zoom Info?
So there's quite a few reasons. So Zoom Info, for one, the diversity and inclusion was really big for me. I really wanted to be in a place where I felt like I was welcomed, and they checked all those boxes. And then another thing, just kind of going back to what I said earlier, it's one of those companies that if you get into it, it's just such a great resume booster. No matter where you go, it's like having Google on your resume, So no matter where you go down the line, it's just one of those places where people will look at that and they will say, wow, that's awesome. If you did great things there, then I know you can do wonderful things here. And then also, I love the fact that it was actually going to end up being a hybrid position somewhat, because
Mhm.
I do better when I'm learning in person. And so what I actually just found out with Zoom Info today actually is, even though we're going into the office one day a week starting in January, I actually have the option right now to go into the office, learn from people if I want, I can go into the office as much as I want to get more of a hands-on, person-to-person kind of experience instead of just being online. So yeah, I'll actually I just put in a request to do that, and I'll be doing that next week.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible. And I mean, the fact that in under 4 weeks you have accepted an offer and have started with one of the largest tech companies, ZoomInfo,
yeah,
is just absolutely amazing. And can you
yeah,
share with us a little bit more in detail about what the position entails, maybe some high levels on how much you can expect to make in your first year?
yeah.
Is it a sales development position? Do you get benefits?
Yes, yeah. So I get benefits. I have unlimited PTO. Let's see. I'm starting around the 80K mark right now, but it's uncapped. I have potential for way more, and the growth potential at Info is crazy. So yeah, I basically it's just it's insane. I don't even know what to say. Coming from a customer service background where I was, and dog walking, where I was making 35, maybe 40, I
Yeah.
doubled my income, literally within 4 weeks time, basically. So that's pretty impressive. But yeah, overall, I'm sorry, repeat the question for me just so I can make sure I got it.
Yeah, you answered it. So I was just asking about some high levels on how much you could expect to make in your benefits, and the fact that you
Yeah,
doubled your income
yeah,
is absolutely incredible.
yeah.
And as far as where you think this position to take will take you, where do you see yourself going in the next couple years or 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I was actually I set aside some time to speak with my manager, because I know the ladder of progression is SDR, AE, so on and so forth. But honestly, Troy, I would actually like to kind of cross train, if they'll allow me, to becoming a sales engineer. So that's actually where I kind of see myself going. Even though that's more of the technical side of things, I'm
Yeah.
very open. I'm very, very open to it. Very excited about it. And then, who knows? I also, my goal within the next 6 months, I would also like to become a lead. That would be pretty awesome to become a lead SDR and just help other people, help other people that are in the position that I am now, that are just coming into ZoomInfo, maybe, have absolutely no tech sales experience, no sales experience.
Yeah.
I think that just kind of putting people's minds at ease, I think is really important when they're coming into such a role. And I have no doubt in my mind that I'd be able to do that for someone if I were a team lead.
Mhm. And what kind of advice would you give to someone who's watching this video but hasn't yet enrolled in the course yet, but is on the fence?
Get in the course. Get in the course. I This has changed my life, and I literally went from talking to the universe like, okay, what am I supposed to do, what's next, to literally watching the Anthony O'Neill and Cyrus Harbin interview just a couple of days later, and then starting with course careers right after that. And I don't even think we mentioned, and this doesn't happen to everyone, so I say this, please understand, it does not, but I started course careers on the 25th, and 2 weeks later I had the job with ZoomInfo. And honestly, Troy, I started this because I just wanted a shift. I wanted a change. I knew that I wasn't going back to college to get a 4 year degree. That wasn't something that I was going to do. And at 34 years old, I was like, okay, I know I'm meant for so much more. I know that, I'm meant to be a motivational speaker. I'm meant to get my podcast up and going, but how am I going to do that, with what money, and then this came in, and so I can't stress the importance enough of just getting started. I get so many people that ask me so many questions, and questions are great, questions are awesome, but at what point Do you say, okay, you know what? Enough of the analysis paralysis. At what point do you say, okay, it's time for me to get started? And I honestly believe, like, if you don't get started soon, you don't want to find yourself in the same position you are now next year, or the year after
Mhm.
that. Start now. This is scary. Even as I go through the training, they're throwing so much at us, and there are so many things that I don't know. And I know once we get on the phones in like the next 2 weeks, I'm probably going to fall flat on my face. But you know what? I'm in a new place. I'm in a new position where I have so much growth potential and can literally be at the 6 figure mark within like the next 6 months to a year. It's like, it's a no brainer for me. So if you haven't started, even just the introductory course, start the introductory course, because that will let you know so much. Go down the rabbit hole like I did. Went on YouTube, like I said, and I researched what is tech sales. And, I found people that had been doing it a long time. I found people that had been doing it for just a few months and were sharing their stories. But I watched and I learned, and here we are.